Week 1 is in the books, and it is time for our Week 2 power rankings. Week 1 was lit, honestly. It was such a good week. So many upsets, honestly. I think I did pretty good on my pick'ems. They're posted on Instagram, so go check those out. But before we get started, I can't stress this enough. The way I do my power rankings isn't based off of wins and losses. It's based off of how I view the team and how I think they've played against their opponent, and whether I think the matchup favored them or they played at a disadvantage. I'm moving them based off of that. There are other factors that go into it that we'll talk to when we get to each team that I think the factors matter and where I move them to. And the other thing is that I literally cannot stress enough. I've had multiple conversations on the Week 1 power rankings about teams that fans have discrepancies about my opinions on, and that's fine. Like, that is what I'm looking for in these power rankings. I can't read every article, watch every video, watch every game. It's impossible. So if I'm missing something or I say something that's incorrect, tell me in the comments, because then I'm going to take that and change it and change my approach moving forward. I'm not going to argue with you because you disagree with my opinion unless I think that unless I think you're wrong. But I'd rather, more often than not, you're telling me information that I did not know. So it's super beneficial. It creates good conversation, creates good dialogue between myself and the people out there, which is what I'm looking for. But anyway, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into our week 2 power rankings. At rank 32, previously 29, I have the New York Jets. I was actually at this game, and the most impressive thing to me about this game was the Jets' defense. The Jets' defense played very well, and they held the Ravens. I think they held the Ravens off for about 3 quarters before the Ravens blew the game wide open. That's impressive to me because that's a game where I think everybody expected a blowout, or like the Jets to not even be in that game. And I think you can make the case with Zach Wilson. It's a closer game. But my main concern for the Jets moving forward is Robert Saleh. Everything I've read and everything I've listened to about the Jets, Robert Saleh is doing a lot. Like, there are a lot of red flags, being that, like, he's starting to come after the fan base, saying things like, "I'm keeping receipts for people who doubted us," blah blah blah. My real concern is, why would you have Joe Flacco throw 59 times? You have Michael Carter. You have Elijah Vera Tucker was PFF's #1 run blocking offensive lineman of the week. You have a good offensive line that you just spent resources, money, draft picks to rebuild. You drafted Breece Hall, and you're not running the ball. Like, you're getting your running backs involved through the passing game, but I think that the Jets should have had a more balanced approach. And maybe that would have helped them, manage the clock better, have better time of possession, and actually, because they slowed the Ravens down long enough, but the passing is putting the defense back on the field faster. They're not drawing the game out like they need to. I don't know. I think the Jets just have a lot of things to fix, and I think playing with Joe Flacco and the game plan to have him throw 59 times is just not a good idea. That's just my opinion on it, but I got the Jets at 32. At rank 31, previously 30, I have the Atlanta Falcons. I thought the Falcons played really well. They were able to run the ball way more efficiently than I thought they would. I don't know if Marcus Mariota has ever run for 70 yards in a game. I could be wrong, but he looked good. He looked comfortable. I thought the Saints defense was a bit underwhelming. My thing with the Falcons, though, and I think this is what's going to hold them back, they really need to game plan around Kyle Pitts and Drake London instead of Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson's cool. He's been efficient for the team. He's been solid. But I think that when you have mismatches, and the Saints play tight ends really well, so I'm not holding that against them so much for this game, because they did do a good job of getting Drake London involved. But I think you need to give Drake London plenty more targets. I think you need to give him more targets. You need to game plan through Drake London, and you definitely need to keep Cordero Patterson involved in the game plan and involved in the game script. I think it also would potentially help the Falcons out if they game planned more designed runs for Mariota. If I'm correct, the Falcons' offensive line has a few good pieces on it, but it's still pretty below average. I think the Falcons' offense. I do think that Arthur Smith is fine. I don't blame Arthur Smith. I mean, they were able to put up, 26 points on the Saints? Like, that's a good defense. I just think that the Falcons need to start transitioning away from Cordero Patterson and focusing on Kyle Pitts and Drake London. That's my opinion. I think if they do that, they'll score more points. Now, you could be saying, well, they just scored 26 on the Saints. Yeah, but Cordero Patterson tailed off at the end of last season. So I want to see them, I think Drake London and Kyle Pitts are way harder to stop throughout the duration of an entire season than Cordero Patterson, who kind of came out of nowhere with the role in this offense. But Falcons at 31. I got the Panthers at 30, previously 25. Here's why they're so low, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield looked really, really bad until the end of halfway through the third quarter into the fourth quarter. He threw an interception, and I think what's not being talked about enough is he fumbled 4 times. Sure, they recovered every single one, but that's not going to happen every game. And if they lose one of those fumbles, this game might not even be as close as it was. The other thing is, they just lost to a team with no quarterback. No slight at Jacoby Brissett, but Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick a few years back, and Jacoby Brissett's a backup. I just think that this should have been a game. Baker has been viewed as a savior for this franchise. People have them in the wild card, which I think is insane. Because before that, this team was viewed as the bottom of. They were going to be competing with the Falcons for the bottom of the division. Then they trade for Baker, and it's like, okay, maybe they'll squeak into the wild card. And then people had them winning the division, and they just go out and lose to the Browns, who don't have a quarterback. I mean, everybody knew the game plan was going to be run the ball, and they couldn't stop it. They don't have any presence off the edge. Their defensive line is, I would say, if I'm remembering correctly, league average. And their offensive line is better, but it's still not good. And for Baker Mayfield to go from the environment that he was in with the Cleveland Browns being an all-pro offensive line, essentially, with 2 elite running backs that he could count on in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt versus just Christian McCaffrey and a pretty below average offensive line. I think it's just too much of an uphill battle for him. And I don't think he's going to catch fire at any point in the season. I think that he was coming out with everything he had against the Browns, and now he lost that game. So what motivation does he have moving forward? I think that this team is just going to start to flounder. And I think that Matt Rule is definitely going to get fired at some point this season. So with that being said, the Panthers might come out and beat the Giants, but Panthers at 30. Next up, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars at rank 29, previously 26th. This isn't really, I thought they played the Commanders really, really well. I think that this team is going to move forward. I think I had them ranked too high to start off with. But there was very promising things from that game, and they definitely could have won that game. Travis Etienne dropped a wide-open touchdown on a wheel route, and then he dropped a wide-open touchdown on a route to the flat that he just dropped. I'm sorry, did I say he dropped the wheel route pass? No, Trevor Lawrence overthrew him on that pass. I think that this team is just going to get better. I think that this is a young team that with a new head coach who knows what he's doing, who played quarterback, who is an offensive-minded coach and has won Super Bowl. I think this team's going to get better as the week goes on. I think if the Jaguars play the Commanders in week 5, I think they win that game. But there's not too much to talk about with the Jaguars. I thought they played it as well as they could have. I just think they're only going to get better is my thing. So I have the Jaguars at 29, and they're a team that I definitely expect to rise up as the weeks go on. Next up, I got the Chicago Bears at 28, previously 32. I can't say this enough. Justin Fields is the only Ohio State quarterback I have ever thought had promise. Just being that I am typically pretty low on Ohio State quarterbacks, being that they are in the most perfect environment in college. And let's not get sidetracked, but Justin Fields I think is legit. I think Justin Fields can actually be a very, very good starter in the NFL. His performance is not why they moved up, though, to be honest. It was more of his will to win. If you look at his stats, they're not pretty. The defense played very, very well. The offense was not pretty, but it shows promise. Like, you kind of can see, like, I'm a very big believer in, like, each team needs an identity. If you don't have an identity, you're going to be one of these bottom of the list teams. And with the Bears, they're going to look to run the ball, and I think that until they get that stud receiver that they need, like, Darnell Mooney is really good, but when you have Equanimous St. Brown as your number 2, nobody's going to game plan for him. And, like, David Montgomery is great, and I really like Khalil Herbert. I think he's the better of the 2 running backs on that team, to be honest. But this offensive line is not going to open running lanes, so it's really tough for them to run the ball. Their receivers aren't that good, and I really think that this team is going to be competitive next year because they laid the foundations for defense, right? I thought the Jaquan Brisker pick in the second round was a phenomenal pick. They didn't have a first rounder this year because they traded up for Justin Fields last year, and I think once they get those offensive pieces, once they get him, I'm not even going to say a wide receiver 1 because I do think Mooney can be a wide receiver 1. But if they get him another receiver that's going to keep teams honest and draft a few offensive linemen or pay a few offensive linemen, this team's going to be good. Like, I think Justin Fields is the most underrated year 2 quarterback in the league. I think that the Bears are good. I think Justin Fields can do it. He definitely needs to be more accurate, but I'm not going to hold that stat against him or his QBR stat or anything like that because they played in a monsoon. So, like, I want to see week 2. I forget who they play week 2, but I want to see Fields progress as a passer. I want to see him I want him to complete at least 60% of his passes this year, which is not asking a lot. I think he completed, like, close to 55, 54 in week 1, but, like, again, like, it was in a monsoon. I don't blame him. He's not getting any protection, so I like the Bears. I like what the Bears are doing. I just wish they spent more resources on Justin Fields early, as in this year, and then fix the defense next year because he's the most important piece to this team. At rank 27, previously 16, I got the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm just going to be honest, the Cowboys were moving down regardless. Like, Dak got hurt in the fourth quarter, and they were not good. And I have believed that the Cowboys were closer to the Giants and Commanders than they were to the Eagles, even before the season started. Definitely after Tyron Smith got hurt. And now, if you followed my fantasy content, I was really in on CeeDee Lamb, but my one criticism and my one worry was I don't know if he can handle it. Like, I don't know if he's that talented to be the one, being that he's played with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup for now, I think, 2 years. This was his year to be the guy, and I'm not going to overreact because it's only been 1 week. Do I think he can still be that guy? Definitely. Has he shown it? No. Like, 2 receptions on 11 targets is... Like, that can't happen again. It just can't happen again. The offensive line was bad. The running game outside of Zeke was bad, which I have been saying. Like, I think Pollard is very overhyped. Dak was bad, and now they're putting Cooper Rush in a situation that is worse than what he did last year. Like, he was able to come out and surprise Minnesota last year, but that was with an elite offensive line, with Amari Cooper, with I don't know if Michael Gallup was playing that game, but with Cedric Wilson, with CD, and with Zeke and Pollard. I think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to move up, and I think that I'm kind of overreacting to dropping them this low, but I think that I had them way too high to begin with. I should have stuck with my gut, because I thought they were like a bottom teens, top 20s team, but there were so many teams that I had to put them above because we just didn't know. So with the Cowboys, I'm not saying their playoff hopes are done, because Dak could come back as quickly as week 4 or week 5, but they need to win at least one of their next 2 or 3 games to stay afloat, because the NFC East is going to be wide open, and I do think the wild card is wide open, but this was like a very bad performance from the starting Dallas Cowboys, which moved them down to around 22, and then Dak going out, I have to move them lower. But yeah, I think the Cowboys might be fine. Their offensive line was pretty much as bad as I expected. Dak was as bad as I expected. But I think that when he comes back, I think they'll win. They'll be about 500, I think. But I want to see more in week 2. At rank 26, previously 27, I have the Houston Texans. This is a team that I've been saying is a lot better than people realize. Their young core is really good. I think that Brandon Cooks is a phenomenal security blanket slot receiver for a rookie quarterback, now year 2 quarterback in Davis Mills. Dameon Pierce was, I think he was my favorite running back in the class. I'm not going to say he was the best, but he was my favorite. And I like Davis Mills. I was high on Davis Mills last year. It's documented in the podcast episodes from about August of last year. And I think that this team, it's just better than people realize. Like, I don't know if they're going to be... I really do think the AFC South is the new NFC East. I think that division is really bad, besides the Colts. It's top-heavy. Like the NFC East, there's always that one team that's just leagues above everybody else, and then everybody's fighting at the bottom for no reason. And I think with the Texans... This was a very, very, very good game. They led, I think, 20-7 for a while. Maybe it was 20-6. And then I think that it was just a rookie head coach mistake of, we're up 20, let's put the veteran in Rex Burkhead instead of talent and trusting our guy in Dameon Pierce. I think that's where this team kind of crumbled because they started to second guess what got them to where they were. And Lovie Smith came out after the game and was like, we need to get Dameon Pierce more touches, which is obvious. He's the best running back on that team. And I think he's really one of the best offensive players on that team. I know that people are going to say you're just bought into the Dameon Pierce hype, but no, like I've been in on this kid since for a long time. When he played against Georgia, that's when I fully bought in on him. And I just think that this team is going to this is another team that's going to get better. They have a pretty young offensive line. They have good tackles. I expect big things out of Kenyon Green. And I think that Nico Collins is going to take a huge step this year. I don't know if Davis Mills will be there next year, depending on how high they're picking. But if the Texans are a top 5 pick, I think that they could be in the hunt for Will Anderson. Because if I'm correct, they don't have a good edge presence, which Will Anderson will definitely fix that right away. They took Stingley early this year. You could have argued they should have went tackle, but they did get Kenyon Green with their second first rounder from the Browns. So we'll see. And I think that John Mechie, hopefully, God willing, he makes a comeback. But I do like the Texans. I think they'll creep up to the upper 20s, but I don't know how high they'll go. But I do think the Texans are a lot better than people realize. At rank 25, I have the Seattle Seahawks, previously 31. This is probably the biggest overreaction on the list. I think that this team, people forget this team got shut out in the second half. Like, they just did not move the ball, and if it weren't for 2 fumbles in the goal line, they lose that game 30-17. But they got those fumbles at the goal line. So you can't take those away because they weren't fluke plays. Like, they were great plays by the defense, able to poke the ball out. Both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Their defense, but let's be honest, their defense did let up 340 yards to Russell Wilson passing. So I don't know. I think this was kind of similar to the Panthers. Like, this was the game they were the hungriest to come out and play. And I think that Well, let me pause for a second. I think that this week 2 game is going to be very interesting because Pete Carroll, as far as I remember, coaches very well against Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. The other thing is Trey Lance, again, I'm not going to hold it against him because they were playing in a monsoon, but he completed, I think, 52 or 54% of his passes, the league low. And Geno Smith was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL on every metric last week. Completion percentage, QBR, etc. He's up there. I don't know if he'll do it again, but I think this Seattle team is much more well coached than we realize. And I think that this week 2 game is either going to be a blowout loss for Seattle or they're going to win in a fashion similar to last week. And if they win again, they might start rolling. I don't know how high their ceiling is, but I'm rooting for Seattle. I hope they shock the world this year. I also really hope Geno plays. Geno deserves it. He's got the short end of the stick for so long. But Seattle's defense, I thought, played pretty poorly, but they came up big where it mattered, which was in the goal line. And I think their offense, I think it's going to be fine. I think they're going to be obviously run heavy with Kenneth Walker, Rashad Penny, and I think that DK Metcalf, he'll get rolling. He did see a good amount of targets, but they were all kind of close to the line of scrimmage. And I don't know. I think this team's gonna be actually a lot better than we think. I don't know how much better, but like the common consensus was 30, like sub 30, and everybody's moved them up. So I'm gonna keep Seattle at 25 for this week. Very interested in this 49ers game this week. At rank 24, previously 28, I have the Washington Commanders. Again, this is a team that like I'm moving up, but is fascinating in my opinion because Carson Wentz gave Washington the full Carson Wentz experience, big numbers, huge plays, and then 2 boneheaded turnovers. I think the most interesting part of this team is the wide receiver trio. I think that Jahan Dotson is as good as I expected. I wasn't shocked that Jahan Dotson was a top 20 pick. I was shocked that the Washington Commanders took him at 16 because Washington's not that good at drafting. They're all right at drafting, but like they're not great. And I thought that actually was a really good pick for them because my player comp, if you go back and watch my mock drafts, my player comp for Jahan Dotson was Terry McLaurin. And I thought it was really interesting that Washington went out and took Dotson to pair up with Terry McLaurin. And now Curtis Samuel is healthy, and he looked really good. I think he had 11 targets. A few handoffs. So I think Washington, again, is a team that is better than I expected, but I also don't think they're that good because I think the Jaguars, again, if they play them in week 5, I think they lose that team. And I think Carson Wentz, we know what Carson Wentz is, and he's going to unravel at some point this year. So it'll be interesting. I think the Commanders' offense, I think their passing attack is way better than I anticipated. But their defense without Chase Young is still kind of like, I think everybody expected it to be better. But we'll see. I'm keeping an eye on Washington. I'm keeping an eye on their passing game. I think that's going to be the make or break thing for this team and coaching. I think Ron Rivera should definitely be on a hotter seat than he currently is. But we'll see. I got the Commanders at 24. We'll see what happens to them in the next few weeks. At rank 23, previously 17, I have the Patriots. So kind of like I mentioned before, each team will have an identity by week 3, and we kind of see the identity being made. There is no identity for the Patriots. Like, there's not even a silhouette of the Patriots offense identity yet. And I picked this picture because I think Mac Jones should be saying in this conversation, like, we need to figure this out. Why did you give me Joe Judge and Matt Patricia to replace Josh McDaniels? Like, I don't understand what you're thinking. And I'm never going to question Bill Belichick. I say that all the time. But if you're a Patriots fan, I actually heard someone say that they want to fire Bill Belichick after this season. And it wasn't Colin Cowherd. It was someone else. It was like a random Patriots content creator or fan I think he was on the Rich Eisen show. I wouldn't go that far, but if this offense doesn't figure it out, like they're going to not be good this year. Like they'll finish 3rd in the division, but like I know Patriots fans are very upset with the state of the team, and I know Patriots fans are very upset with the state of the offense, and I know they're very upset with what's happening to Mac Jones. So I think this is a team that their defense isn't able to win games anymore, and their offense isn't good enough to stay in games anymore. I just think that this offense is beyond stinky. They have no identity. And I think that if you play fantasy, you should probably pick up Ramondre Stevenson in every single league with Ty Montgomery getting hurt. But Patriots at 23, we'll see what happens in week 2. They're playing the Steelers, which I think will be a very interesting game. I'm going to lean Steelers on that one, but we'll see what happens. At rank 22, previously 19, I have the Tennessee Titans. This is a team that I said was very overrated to start the season. And I think that was shown in week 1 against their matchup against the Giants, which I predicted them to lose. So I was right there. I think that this team needs to just become more multidimensional. And I think they will, because I think Mike Vrabel is a very good head coach. But their offensive line is going to limit this team big time. Like they have Nicholas Petit-Frere filling in at right tackle, I believe, and he's a 3rd-round pick this year. And he was allowing pressures like crazy preseason and even in college. The Giants played them with no edge rushers, being that Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau were out for that game. And Nick P didn't allow a single pressure. So why I'm saying this is the Titans O-line can only go down. They play the Bills this week, and I think that is when we're going to see how bad this offensive line is. I'm not going to tell you to sit Derrick Henry in fantasy, but like I have Derrick Henry in a lot of leagues, and I'm thinking about it. I am really thinking about it because I don't know what he's going to be able to do. That Bills D-line, I think that's one of their weakest units, and it's stronger than teams' strongest strengths. Like the Titans need to develop as a passing game, and I really like Kyle Phillips. I think he's kind of becoming the Hunter Renfrow of the Titans, but I think the Titans also led the league in drops. So we'll see what happens. I think when they play a team this week with a real edge presence, the Titans are going to be in for a much more rude awakening, and I don't think that game is particularly even going to be close. Even if the offense played well, I just don't think that the defense played well. I don't think that offensive line is going to allow them to do anything against the Bills. But Titans at 22, and I'm just going to spoiler alert, if they lose to the Bills, I'm not going to drop them that low. I'm really just focusing on what their offensive line does in week 2. At rank 21, previously 20, I got the New Orleans Saints. I saw someone rank them number 6 overall, which was like, that's crazy to me. And why I'm moving them down, even though they won, that should be 1-0, not 0-1, so that's on me. Even though they beat the Falcons, the Saints should be a lot better than the Falcons on paper, and I don't think that game should have been particularly close. So that's why I'm moving them down. Just one spot. But Michael Thomas looked good. He didn't have a ton of targets, but he looked really good in the red zone. He had 2 touchdowns. Jarvis Landry looked good. Olave looked good. And I'm going to keep saying it. Jameis Winston is playing good football and has been playing good football since they asked him to fill in as a starter. Like, Jameis Winston is a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. He's not elite. He's not a world breaker, but he is. Like, he's not a meme, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't care what outlandish thing he says. He has not played bad football since being asked to be the starter of the New Orleans Saints. Before he got hurt last year and even into this year. He led that comeback. Alvin Kamara was a non-factor in that game, which kind of concerns me, but my point is that the Saints should be a lot better than the Falcons. They shouldn't be beating the Falcons by 1 point. So that's why I'm dropping them low. And that's kind of what I preface the video with of like, I don't care about the outcome. I have it mislabeled here, but they're moving down even though they won because they should have played a lot better. In my opinion, the defense looked pretty bad. They got carved up by a Falcons offense, which is bad. So I don't know. I think the Saints to me still, I have no idea what they are, and I'm very hesitant to move them one way or the other because I want to see them for a few weeks. But the offense was very encouraging to me. I think that Michael Thomas looked great. That answers a question. Jarvis Landry looked great. That answers a question. And Chris Olave looks good. I'm not going to say he looks great, but he looked really good in that game. And their offensive line looks really good. I'm curious, though, why Alvin Kamara wasn't featured as much, and I think that I'm chalking that up to Taysom Hill's increase in snaps, but we'll see what happens in week 2. I would expect the Saints to move up in the power rankings. I forget who they're playing, but I think this team is better than the 21st overall team. At rank 20, previously 22, I have the Cleveland Browns. I have to give credit to any team that beats a team without a quarterback. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I think that this team, with the strength of their schedule, is going to linger around long enough to where Deshaun Watson will come back and there's a chance they make the wild card or they make the playoffs. I'm not sure if they'll win the division. It depends on how many games they win. But the Bengals losing week 1 is massive because I think the Browns play Houston this week, I think. So I'm interested. They play a really easy matchup. I forget exactly who they play, but they have a really easy matchup that I think they'll win. And then they're 2-0, and they only got to survive for 9 more weeks until Deshaun comes back. But I think this Browns roster is as good as I expected. I thought that I had the Browns in the Super Bowl in 2020. I think their roster is still that good. They just need a quarterback, and they have that in Deshaun. They just need to survive long enough to where this year isn't a wash. But the Browns look good. They do everything they do every year. They run the ball. They run the ball well. Amari Cooper looked really good. I thought even though his stat line was poop, I thought he looked really good running routes, separating, etc. Just you can't expect a lot from him when he's getting the ball from Jacoby Brissett. So I'm keeping that in my mind and taking that with a grain of salt. But I think that the Browns are as good as I thought. The roster is as good as I thought. It's just a matter of how many games will they win with Jacoby Brissett under center. And that's going to be the key, because if they can hang around and Deshaun comes back, they're going to be a scary team to play down the stretch. That's my stance on the Browns. At rank 19, previously 23, I have the Detroit Lions. I've been saying this for a long time. I thought that there was a chance the Detroit Lions finish second in the division. And this was before the draft. I think they're doing everything right, and I had so much confidence in this front office before the draft, and I loved the Lions draft. They're going to be a scary team down the stretch when they have they're 0-1. I put that's a mistake. I think I flipped them with the Saints before I recorded it and just changed the logos and not the records. But they're 0-1. They lost to the Eagles. But I think that they have the best offensive line in football. I think PFF has them ranked third. I think they're better because that Eagles D-line is really good, and they held them off for a long time. I think they only let up 1 or 2 sacks, and I'm not sure how many pressures. But I really like this Lions team, and I think when Jameson Williams comes back, they're going to be a problem. But They did drop 35 points on an Eagles defense that everybody has ranked towards the top of the league. And I think that is a big deal. I think that one thing that I was correct about, and this is kind of my takeaway from the Atlanta game in the preseason, was they're going to be a team that runs the ball and they run it really well. I think DeAndre Swift had 14 carries for 144 yards, something around that. Jamal Williams looked really good in the red zone. And I think he got an uptick in red zone targets because usually DeAndre Swift tore a run off that got them in the red zone, and he kind of got a breather, and they would score while Jamal Williams was in. But I think Jamal Williams is really good. I think he's a key piece in this offense. But, yeah, and one thing I'm really happy about, and one player I really want to do well, and I'm happy he did do well, was Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah did a very good job shutting down Devontae Smith. I'm curious why they didn't have him on A.J. Brown. But I really hope Jeff Okudah comes back and is as good as he started the year before he got hurt last year. I know it was only like half a game before he got hurt, but I had big expectations for him last year. And I think he's a piece in this Lions defense that everybody's forgotten about, who's going to be a very key factor for the success of the Lions. So with all that being said, I think the Lions are a good team. I don't think they're a joke. I think they're better than everybody below them. They just need to close out games. And like if you could also argue like they don't give up that onside kick on special teams, and they don't, and Jared Goff doesn't throw a pick six, like they win that game. And obviously you could say that, but like I think the Lions are a lot better than people realize, and I think people are starting to get hyped on them from Hard Knocks. I haven't watched Hard Knocks past the second episode. The only thing I took away from Hard Knocks was Dan Campbell actually has a really good pedigree as a head coach, and they're going to run the ball a ton. But I think the Lions are a very good football team. I think they're going to continue to get better, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they play in Week 2 against the Commanders. That's a game I think they win. Coming in at rank 18, previously ranked 24, I have the New York Giants. I have said for a while now, especially on Twitter, but I did put it on the Instagram as well, so now it's in 2 places. I think that the New York Giants are the biggest sleeper team in 2022. I never thought this roster was as bad as it was displayed in previous years. I think this roster is actually worse than the 2020 Giants or the 2021 Giants. I think the coaching staff is one of the most underrated coaching staffs in the entirety of the NFL. You have Brian Daboll, who was with the Bills pretty much the entire time Josh Allen was there, has a phenomenal pedigree. You have Saquon coming off of the year of return from ACL injuries. Everybody knows, if you follow fantasy content, one of the best things that we could gather analytically from fantasy content is running backs will return to form, return close to peak form the year after the ACL tear. So like the ACL tear year, they're out. Then they come back and they're not that good. But the year after that, that's when they come back, and that's exactly what we saw with Saquon week 1. Daniel Jones looked pretty good. His stats looked good. The gameplay from Daniel Jones wasn't great, but he was pressured, I think, on 79% of dropbacks in the first quarter, I read on Twitter. So I think in week 2 against the Carolina Panthers, we'll see a different performance from Daniel Jones. But the biggest reason why I think the Giants are sleepers, and I ranked them 24 to be on the safe side of things, I did pick them to beat the Titans. I think this coaching staff is just, they finally have the right coaches in the building for the first time since Tom Coughlin. So I think this team is going to continue to get better, and they had, like I mentioned with the Titans, their 5th overall pick didn't play, and Azeez Ojulari, their other edge rusher, didn't play. So they played hurt, and they still found a way to win. I think with the easier opponent like Carolina, I'm not writing that game off, but I definitely like Carolina since they're the underdogs to take the spread of Carolina. I think the spread is like 2.5. I do like that. But yeah, I think the Giants this schedule is going to allow them to be a 500 team. I think they're easily an 8-9 win team. And the week 1 performance against the Titans really reassured that. So I got the Giants at 18. Very interested to see how they play moving forward, and definitely interested to see what happens week 2 against the Carolina Panthers. This one might be an overreaction, but I'm not totally sure if it is. Steelers at 17, previously 21. I just think we underestimate Mike Tomlin every single year, and we never learned that lesson. He made Big Ben, who was basically a traffic cone, took him to the playoffs in 2020. I just think that this team, it's just so well coached that it doesn't matter what we think they are. It's kind of like how I view the Patriots. It doesn't really matter what the media thinks we know about the team because the coach is that good. And I think Mike Tomlin is not on the same level as Bill Belichick in terms of all time, but Mike Tomlin has never had a below 500 year. Will this be the year? Maybe, but that team looked well coached, obviously. They just lost TJ Watt for the year, which definitely hurts them. I'm excited to see Kenny Pickett. I think that he's going to be... I think when his time comes, he will add a spark and a new element to this offense. And I'm excited to see George Pickens continue to develop. My concern really is with Najee Harris. If he's hurt with the Liz Frank injury, how does that affect this team, particularly on offense? Because they don't have great depth at running back. They have Benny Snell. They have Jalen Warren. They have Anthony McFarland. But none of those guys are Najee Harris. Najee Harris is his own breed. So the thing that I'm really interested to watch is the Steelers' secondary and their offense to see how that develops and kind of moves forward throughout the season. Because I think that this is a team where we might see a shift in identity in them, as they're not going to be a huge smash mouth run first offense if Najee Harris gets hurt. And then I would like to see how Mike Tomlin handles Mitch Trubisky without the security blanket of Najee Harris. So I think the Steelers beating the Bengals, there's not a more Mike Tomlin game that he should win where he's an underdog in a division. Underdog in a division rivalry game. So I think that betting against the Steelers was a very unwise decision, which is why I didn't do that. But I think that this is going to be a team that might stall or sputter depending on the health of Najee Harris. So I'm very interested to see how they look by week 4. I would say I want to see them week 4 and see what they look like then. No team in the entire NFL is more frustrating to me than the Arizona Cardinals, because the Cardinals were a poverty franchise, right? They drafted Josh Rosen. They were like, psych, that was a mistake, which was good. That was a very wise move. Then they take Kyler Murray the next year. Great move. But Kyler Murray has brought this franchise to relevancy, and he has completely masked all of the ineptitudes of this front office. And particularly, he has saved Cliff. He just got Cliff Kingsbury paid. And if you followed this channel at all, I cannot stand Cliff Kingsbury. I think he is the biggest fraud in all of the NFL. The fact that he was able to not win in college with Patrick Mahomes, get signed as a head coach, and then not win with the team he had, particularly last year. I said multiple times I thought the Cardinals were one of the most talented teams in football last year, and he just almost guaranteed will deteriorate down the stretch. He's been doing that since college. This team not playing well in September, I'm kind of giving them a pass, which is why I only moved them down one. This is the Cardinals at rank 16, previously ranked 15. Why I only moved them down one spot is I still believe the talent on the field. Their defense was a mess. It's no secret that Patrick Mahomes is one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz, and they blitzed him all game. And it's no surprise he dropped 5 touchdowns on you. Like, that to me is just, that's a coaching mistake. That's not anything the team did. Like, why are you blitzing Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback in the NFL against the blitz? The other thing is the offensive line took a step back, so I'm very curious to see how they react to. I mean, it's not really Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray played very well with a very bad offensive line his rookie year. But James Conner was a huge part of the success of this offense last season, and I've told everybody to fade James Conner in fantasy this year because outside of his touchdowns, his pure runner stats were pretty bad. And now he's in a worse situation. So I'm very interested to see how what this offense looks moving forward without DeAndre Hopkins for 5 more weeks, and then you have Marquise Brown and AJ Green, and then I think Greg. They have 1/3. The one receiver that led them in targets is not, like, unless you're a Cardinals fan, you don't know his name. I forgot his name already. And I forgot to write it down. But this is a team that I'm very interested to see moving forward. I think that they are a team that's going to struggle to figure out their identity on offense. Because I think, in my opinion, it's going to be pretty difficult to be that air raid offense without DeAndre Hopkins and with subpar offensive line play. And their defense looks bad. Their defense, and I'm kind of waiting to say their defense is bad because they played Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So, like, I'm not going to condemn them for that because that's just a great offense. Like we saw, everybody watched the division game last year against the Bills. Divisional game, excuse me. So, Cardinals at 16, very interested to see what this team looks like I would say by week 5. I want to see what they look like before DeAndre Hopkins comes back because there's a chance they're under 500 before DeAndre Hopkins comes back. I have at rank 15, previously ranked 18, the Miami Dolphins. I'm not moving them up because they beat the Patriots. I'm moving them up because their offense showed life and showed that it was a functioning offense. And I don't know how long. If you're a Dolphins fan, when was the last time you remembered the Dolphins having a good offense? Not an elite offense, just life on offense. Like, everybody was like bashing Jalen Waddle over in the fantasy community because they're like, there's no way he does what he does with Tyreek Hill there. But my argument was he's going to see a massive uptick in efficiency because he's not that offense last year was Mike Gesicki and Jalen Waddle. That was it. They didn't have any run. They had Myles Gaskins and Salvin Ahmed, and they didn't have an offensive line. So the offense looks good. Where I am very concerned and why I don't have them in the top 10 like other people do is Tua. And I'm not bashing Tua because he didn't play particularly bad, but one of my super hot takes was that I think Tua might get benched for Teddy Bridgewater at some point in this season if they're in the realm of a wild card game and Tua is struggling. Because Teddy Bridgewater has succeeded on multiple teams, and this is a direct quote from Tua in a press conference. If I can't see you, you can't see me. I can't get you the ball. Your quarterback, like if you're a quarterback and you're saying that is like Drew Brees, right? Drew Brees never even would have thought of ushering a sentence like that because he made it work. Kyler Murray's not the tallest quarterback in the NFL, and he makes it work. Like, Tua has a small arm, and now he's saying stuff like this. So, like, I am concerned for Tua. Tua, to me, and there was a very good point raised, I believe on the herd, that basically was something I was thinking, and then he said it, and I was like, okay, then this is sound logic, is the Dolphins are going to have to look at this team at the end of the year and ask themselves, did Tua elevate us or did we elevate Tua? And I think that that's the question they're going to have to, and they're going to have to ask themselves that question before the season's over because they might be in playoff contention. And if Tua is holding them back, I'm not saying Teddy Bridgewater is a world beater or going to take this offense to the next level, but Teddy Bridgewater is more of a veteran. He's accomplished more in his career, and he was very successful with the Saints team. I think he went 5-0 when Drew Brees had the same injury that Dak had, something with his hand. So I have the Dolphins at 15, and I'm not going to overreact and throw them to the top 10 because I want to see. I think this is a game that the Dolphins definitely could win this week against the Ravens. They're plus 3.5 last time I checked. I like that number, and I think that the Dolphins might just win that game outright because we're going to talk about the Ravens when we get there, but in my opinion, the Dolphins have a better offense, and their defense might be on par with the Ravens. It's just a matter of, do I trust Tua to beat Lamar Jackson with a better team in a close game? That's my question. So I have the Dolphins at 15. I anticipate them moving forward, but I anticipate them moving up, but I'm not ready to just catapult them into the top 10 for one game. Next up, I got the 49ers at rank 14, previously ranked 10. Like I said with Justin Fields, I'm not going to hold the stats against him because, I picked this picture because they're playing in a complete monsoon. But that roster outclasses the Bears roster by a million. There's no way that game should have actually even been lost because, in theory, the 49ers are a better running team, and in the rain, you're going to run the ball team, and they definitely have the better defense, and they still lost. So it's a red flag to me for Trey Lance more than anything. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan should be getting as much heat as he's getting, and I don't necessarily think Trey Lance should be getting as much heat as he's getting, but where I'm kind of following the breadcrumbs is that they reworked Jimmy Garoppolo to keep him there, and I think that was them kind of, if you followed the reports coming out of camp and preseason, there were very mixed reports about Trey Lance. One day he's on fire, the next day he can't complete a check down. It was very back and forth, and I think them reworking Jimmy Garoppolo was kind of them admitting they made a mistake in giving the team to Trey too soon. I think Kyle Shanahan even is quoted saying, "I wish he had another year," which they could have gave him another year. They didn't need to push him in, and I don't think Kyle Shanahan wanted to push him in. I think the front office, who just traded 3 first-round picks, wanted him to play, and I guess that makes sense, being that he needs reps to get better. But I don't know if I would have done it in a year where your roster is built for the Super Bowl. So, like I mentioned with the Seahawks have had the Niners number the past few years. If Trey Lance loses this game, I don't think that the people are going to say it, as in, is the clock ticking on Trey to get benched? I don't think that's necessarily the case just yet. Is it off the table? No. But I will be interested to see how Trey Lance plays. I forget if that's a home game or not, if they're home or away. But I'm very interested to see how Trey plays against Seattle. Seattle has some momentum now coming in off of that win. But the 49ers definitely outclassed them on all sides of the ball, so I think they should win that game. But I want to see Trey Lance complete at least 58% of his passes, because I think he completed 52 this week, which is just terrible. Just give me 58% to see that there's some, it wasn't, you're not just that bad. It's just it was the rain affecting you. If you give me 58%, I'll take that, because he's only thrown 100 100 live passes in 3 years, something, or in the NFL, something like that. It's a very small sample size. So I want to see Trey get more reps, and I want to see what he looks like in a home game. If he can complete 60% of his passes at home against a weak Seattle team, that's a positive sign, in my opinion. And I don't think that you necessarily need to complete 1,000,000% of your passes, because Lamar doesn't complete a ton of passes. I think he's below league average, but they win games. So you kind of just might have to, if you're the 49ers, you might have to just lean into Trey's play style and run him 10 plus times a game and have him throw 20 times a game. I think you could definitely win games like that. Especially when you have Deebo Samuel, who could arguably be one of the best running backs in the league if he just committed to that position. But yeah, I got the Niners at 14. Very interested to see this week 2 game and see how they adjust to Trey's play style, if they adjust to Trey's play style moving forward. Next up on this list, I have the Las Vegas Raiders at 13, previously ranked 12. I'm not moving them down for that loss because I think that the Chargers are very one of the best teams in football. But it did kind of confirm what I thought about the Raiders of like this offensive line is going to struggle. Khalil Mack, I think, had 3 sacks on Carr. But they did run the ball well. I just don't know why they didn't run it more often. I think Josh Jacobs was averaging 5.4 or 5.7 yards a clip. And if that's the case, like I think they need to do a better job controlling the game more. And I think that's what's going to happen throughout the season. But I just worry about this this was my knock on the Raiders in week 1. And this is why I thought that this was going to hold them at the bottom of the division was they're not a good pass blocking unit. And asking Derek Carr is one of the best fourth quarter quarterbacks in all of the NFL. What worries me though is and yes, he's never had a good offensive line, but I think that this team could potentially be a very good running team despite their offensive line woes. And Raiders fans, if I'm getting this wrong, please correct me, but I think that Derek Carr and Devontae Adams are enough to make it to the wild card. It's just kind of in my opinion, I want to see the running backs get more involved. I know Brandon Bolden scored a touchdown. And I want Hunter Renfrow to get more involved. Hunter Renfrow was one of the best slot receivers in the NFL last year. And I just feel like he wasn't as, they didn't game plan enough for him this year. And I think Josh McDaniels, who loves throwing to his slot receivers, will fix that moving forward. And I'm not saying throw it less to Devontae Adams, but Hunter Renfrow is a mismatch, in my opinion. And I think they need to take advantage of that more. I think they definitely come out this week and beat the Cardinals with how frustrating the Cardinals are to watch. But I think you have the right coach and you have the right pieces to... I think you could win this division. I truly think anybody in this division could win it. It's just, I think after week 1, we see how large the gap is from the Chargers and Chiefs to the Raiders and Broncos. And I think the reason why I'm so hesitant to pick the Raiders to win this division is the offensive line. I think they have the worst offensive line in the division, and that's going to be a huge pain point for them moving forward. So I have the Raiders at 13. I think they definitely could move up, though. I'm not writing them off. They're just in a weird spot for me because I think they could be really, really good because they're such a resilient locker room, being that they endured the John Gruden thing, the Henry Ruggs thing, and the guy who's holding the guns thing. I forgot his name. But I think they're a good team. They just need to... I think they need to get more players involved on offense. At rank 12, previously ranked 14, I have the Eagles. If the Eagles were as good as advertised or as they're supposed to be, this game shouldn't have been close, in my opinion. The Lions played better than everybody expected, and I think the Eagles played worse than everybody expected. Yes, they won. Yes, A.J. Brown looked good. Yes, Jalen Hurts scored rushing touchdowns. The offensive line looked good. But this was a heavyweight versus a lightweight, so to speak, if you're basing it off of everybody's assessment of the teams. And my main concern with the Eagles, which has been my concern with the Eagles since last year, is how are you going to win big games if Jalen Hurts is completing 56% of his passes? I think the NFL is is very much so a matchup based league, and if they run into Tampa Bay again and they can't run the ball, they're going to have a hard time. Jalen Hurts completed 56% of his passes with, I think, a bottom 5 average depth of target. That's not good. That's not okay, especially if you're a team that is projected to win the NFC. You're supposed to be in the NFC Championship. And here's my thing with why I'm harping on the completion percentage and definitely the average depth of target. Lamar has one playoff win and is the best quarterback in the NFL at playing this low completion percentage style of quarterback that could win games, but he's completing a much higher average depth of target with a higher completion percentage than what Jalen Hurts is doing. So if Jalen Hurts has a lower completion percentage on a lowered average depth of target, it's hard for me to buy into this team, especially with how their defense just got demolished by the run. to have DeAndre Swift gash you for 140 plus yards on 14 carries, that's like not a good sign. It's just not, especially with how this team is advertised. I think the Eagles definitely run away with this division. That's not my concern. I think they definitely make the playoffs. That's not my concern. My concern is, how does Jalen Hurts look in the playoffs? I just think that you can't win big games like that without someone who can make big time throws in tight windows. And I don't think Jalen Hurts has proven that yet. And if he has done it, he hasn't done it on a consistent basis. Like, it's just, I think that they're going to struggle a lot against teams who stop the run, and that's exactly what we saw last year. At rank 11, previously ranked 11, I have the Green Bay Packers. Yes, they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not putting too much stock into that. The Vikings were dark horse teams to win this division. Like they're a dark horse team to win this division. They're a dark horse team to win the NFC. And the Packers started off the same exact way they did this year, they did last year against the Saints. They definitely need time to figure out this receiving core. They definitely need time to get their players on the same page. And I think their defense, despite what happened to them, their defense is still top end of the league. Like, Justin Jefferson's on a different level. We all knew that coming into this year. But I think that their defense is going to be it's going to look different this week, and it's going to look different in later weeks. But like, Christian Watson doesn't drop that pass, this game is different, and the momentum of the game is different. I don't think the Packers are nearly as bad as people are. I have seen the Packers ranked under at 16 and under, and that's just insane to me. This team has won 13 games all 3 of the past 3 years, so I'm not worried about them losing a divisional game with an FCS receiver and a receiver from Nevada who have never played on a stadium this big going at division speed in their first game ever. Like, I'm not worried about that. They're going to figure it out. What I worry about is the time it takes to figure it out. Can they figure it out fast enough to win the division? Because I think this team definitely can still win the division. Can they figure it out fast enough to make it into the wild card? Definitely. They're definitely going to be a wild card team, even if they don't win the division. So I think it'll be interesting to watch the Packers moving forward, because I think there's a chance they play the Vikings in the playoffs. So not worried about the Packers, not stressing. I think they'll be definitely A-okay. At rank 10, previously ranked 9, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor is still him, and Frank Reich is doing exactly what he said he was going to do and throw the ball more. Matt Ryan attempted, I think he had 50 passes. 50 or 40. I think it was 50, though. Now that's including overtime, so it's probably not going to be that high every week. But I think that this is why I moved them down, is like, 1, teams are moving up, but 2, like, you should beat the Texans by a large margin. But why I'm not condemning them for this is it's their first game with a new quarterback. I think the teams with new quarterbacks all lost, except for the Commanders and the Steelers. I think everybody else with a new quarterback lost. So I'm not going to hold it against them. I think this team still has their identity. Their identity is the same, and they're just becoming more multidimensional. Being able to throw the ball more. Michael Pittman looks just as advertised. He looks elite. I want to see Alec Pierce get more involved, and I think that'll come. But not worried about the Colts. They're going to run away with this division. And I think that they are going to be a team that makes noise in the playoffs. I think that's, like, I'm not worried about Matt Ryan's performance this week. It wasn't bad by any means. I just think that the next time they play the Texans it's going to look completely different. Like, I don't think the Texans will lead in that game after the first quarter, depending on who gets the ball first. But yeah, I think that the Colts are going to be much, much better as they get together and Matt Ryan gets more snaps and they just get their chemistry where it needs to be. At rank 9, previously ranked 8, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. More injuries, man. They lost their left tackle again. or they lost their left tackle this game. They didn't look good on offense. Leonard Fournette looked really good. They looked good running the ball, but Dallas was not good. Like, Dallas did not look good. Dallas is not good. And Tampa Bay, in my opinion, should play a lot better, but I'm holding my judgment because it's the first game with Todd Bowles, and their defense looked really good. And last year, the script was flipped of their offense, where their defense was hurt, and their offense was healthy, except for when Chris Godwin and like all of them got hurt down the stretch, which is why they lost in the playoffs. But the defense is healthy, the offense is hurt. So I want to see them play more games because now you have to factor in this is a new offensive line unit that still has to get their chemistry together. They have a new left tackle now. They have a new center. They have a new left guard. I think they have a new left guard. I think the only consistency is the right side of the line with Tristan Wirfs and whoever their right guard is. I'm forgetting. But this team, again, like, I'm not worried about them early, and they also won a game. They're 1-0, not 0-1. So I'll fix that in the next video. But yeah, they're fine. They're going to be fine. I'm not worried about them at all. I am worried what this offense, like what this, because Chris Godwin did get hurt. He hurt his hamstring. But my concern is, can they keep Tom Brady? I mean, he's 45 now. So, like, can they keep Tom Brady healthy enough to where he's not the next one to get hurt? And I think Leonard Fournette is dealing with a hamstring injury now. So we'll see what happens. Like, this team is deteriorating again. So I think they're probably the most injured team in football right now. So we'll see what happens. I'm not too worried about them, being that they're 1-0, not 0-1. I definitely think that they will continue to get better. But at the same time, like the Packers, I worry how long it's going to take. At rank 8, previously ranked 7, I got the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow missed all of training camp. Or not all of training camp, I'm sorry. Missed a few weeks with appendicitis, so he had to get his appendix removed. That's what that means. And he was a player who wanted to take snaps in preseason. And I think taking snaps, especially for quarterbacks and certain positions, I think the offense should take reps in preseason, get used to getting hit, get used to, going through the offense, getting back into, live speed, because everybody knows the preseason is much slower than the regular season and et cetera. But he did say that he did want to play in the preseason, and he couldn't play the last week because of his appendix. And I think, this is a game where, Mike Tomlin was in his bag. Their defense was in their bag. And the offensive line, it's upgraded, but it's the only true unit in football where you need reps together. You need that chemistry of, a receiver could run a route, a defender could defend, a running back could take a handoff, a quarterback could make a throw, but the offensive line needs to be in sync. And with all of the upgrades they've made, they're not in sync yet. And this is a team that's obviously gonna get hot. They're playing the Cowboys this week. They're gonna slap the Cowboys, and they're gonna get better. So it doesn't surprise me that they sputtered in the way they did. Joe Burrow coming off the appendicitis and under, I think, more pressure than he was anticipating. And the offensive line struggles, being that it's a new offensive line, I'm not going to move them far down because they lost the game. These all are things that I think you should have expected, being with what has happened over the last few weeks and how they've what their big moves were. So I'm not gonna move the Bengals too far down. I still think they're definitely a top 10 team. But I want to see how this offensive line develops, which is the case for a lot of teams because I think it's very important. But I want to see how the offensive line develops moving forward. At rank 7, previously ranked 4, I got the Denver Broncos. The thing with the Broncos for me is they win that game by 30. Not by 30. It's 30-17 if they don't have Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon fumble inside the 5. I think that that's not going to happen again. And the other thing is, they need to, Shannon Sharp was saying it, but, they need to play Javonte Williams all the time. And they only need to take him out if he's tired. Melvin Gordon didn't, I guess it's fine from, not as a fantasy perspective, as, an NFL real-life perspective. It's fine, I guess, if you want to split the goal line reps, because Melvin Gordon is very good in on the goal line. But Russell Wilson was looking for Javonte Williams. And, like, Javonte Williams is an elite pass-catching running back, and he's very hard to tackle. Like, Kevin O'Connell even said in his press conference of, like, Javonte got farther than we were expecting on that play. That's just what Javonte does. Like, you need to feature him. And, I don't care if you split the goal line because Melvin Gordon is very good on the goal line. But Javonte needs to be on the field more. The other thing is, like, for Russell Wilson, like, you paid him $200, I don't even know how many $1 million, but you're paying him all that money, and you take the ball out of his hands on 4th and 5, which is, like, literally why you brought him, like, why you paid for him and traded all that money, all those picks for him. But the other thing is, like, for Russell Wilson, like, you're so experienced, and you've been in this situation so many times, you have 3 timeouts, call one to be like, what are we doing? Don't burn the clock down to 20 seconds. Like, I think that Broncos loss, despite the 2 fumbles, is a game they still win, and that was just a rookie head coach move, which I don't think will happen again, because Nathaniel Hackett even said in his conference, his press conference of, like, I messed that up. He didn't say it directly, but he admitted, like, they definitely should have gone for it on 4th down. So I still think this roster is that good. I think the Seahawks were better than we expected, and they were definitely hungry for that win. I think you got a rookie head coach, a quarterback in a brand new system, and a brand new team who's kind of a cornball. I think that this team, their trajectory is still going to go up. I may have overrated them a little bit and anointed them way too early. But they need to keep Javonte Williams on the field. He's just better. Like, giving him the ball over Melvin Gordon, or, like, if you give it to Javonte or Melvin Gordon, there is such a better outcome if you give it to Javonte. Like, it's just not close. So that's my thing with the Broncos. I think they'll be all right. But I definitely anointed them way too soon. At rank 6, previously rank 1, I got the LA Rams. My concern with them, which is what I said last week, was how big of an impact does losing Andrew Whitworth make? And it was very evident how big of an impact losing Andrew Whitworth makes. The other thing is, I think it's time we start taking Matthew Stafford's elbow very seriously, because there was at one point, there was a clip of it somewhere, he was coming off the field and he was saying, he either said, I can't hold the ball. He can't hold the ball or he can't throw the ball. And the other thing is, they need to be way more efficient running the ball. I understand Cam Akers had the Achilles tear, and I understand that you're missing Andrew Whitworth hurts a lot, but, like, they need to be able to run the ball, especially if Matthew Stafford's elbow is the way it is. Like, and the other thing is, like, you got to get Allen Robinson involved. That was, like, your big free agency signing, and you threw to him twice. Once was a end of the game Hail Mary type play to Allen Robinson. Like, dude, you threw it to Ben Skowronek over Allen Robinson, who was separating and was open. Like, you go back and watch the tape. I don't know what that was about, if he was running too far where he felt he wasn't comfortable throwing with his elbow, but not saying they should win this game, but they should have looked like a much better team. And Jalen Ramsey let up 160 yards and a touchdown. Like, Aaron Donald got his, and he looked fine, but the defense was bad, and they can't run the ball, and they cannot block on the left side of the line. So I think they're going to have a good rebound game against the Falcons. Again, it's against the Falcons, so I'm not going to put too much weight on it, but I'm expecting this team to look better pass blocking, running the ball, and they need to get Allen Robinson more involved. I'm not even saying that because I championed him in fantasy. Like, that's your big playmaker. And, like, I think there was a quote either from Sean McVay or Matthew Stafford, which is very concerning for me for fantasy and for real life, like, depending on how they're going to use Allen Robinson. They said that they were covering the sideline in their zone. So, like, what that tells me is, like, is Allen Robinson just scheme fit? Like, you need to be playing the appropriate defense to get him the ball. Is he scheme dependent? Like, that's not a good sign in my opinion. And you went out and got him for no reason if that's how you're going to use him. I think it's more of his elbow, of Matthew Stafford's elbow not being, like, him not being comfortable. But definitely was let down by the Rams, and I definitely thought they would play a lot better. At rank 5, I have the Minnesota Vikings. The reason I'm moving them so high up is one, like I mentioned with the Packers, I think the Packers have a top defense in the league. Not the top, but a top. And Justin Jefferson was just wide open. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, he wasn't even making contested catches. Like, he went, 9 for 11 with 184 and 2 touchdowns. Like, and this is what I was saying too about Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins isn't bad. He's bad in big games, and I've said that, but maybe now that they have an offensive-minded coach, and a lot of reports are saying that Mike Zimmer was just this negative cloud in the building, you put in Kevin O'Connell, who's an offensive-minded coach coming from a very successful organization in the LA Rams. Maybe that's all they needed, because there's not really any changes to this offense. I think that the Vikings' pass rush was very impressive, and I think this offense was very impressive. Again, this is why I say matchups matter, against a very impressive defense. Do I think this is probably the worst game the Packers are going to play all season? Probably. Like, it'll probably be their top 3 worst game they play all season, but this game speaks more to me about the Vikings than it does the Packers. So I have the Vikings at 5. They play the Eagles this week, which is a game I expect them to win. I think I forgot to say this, but previously ranked 13. I have the Vikings at 5. They play the Eagles this week, and I think they're going to win that game. Just because I think that if it's a close game, the better passing offense is going to win it, and I don't think that the Eagles are there, and I think that Justin Jefferson is on a different level. So Darius Slay and James Bradbury shouldn't slow him down at all. So we'll see. I think that was a very impressive win over the Packers. And I think that this Eagles game is probably going to be one of the best games of the week, so definitely tune into that. But yeah, I got the Vikings at 5. Very interested to see how they play the Eagles this week, because that should be a very good matchup. At rank 4, I have the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is a team that previously ranked 5. I'm not putting any stock into this win. The reason they moved up partially is because teams moved down. I have a very big concern with the Ravens, and it's on offense. Because I was at this game, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they couldn't run the ball, like, at all. Granted, they were running it with Kenyon Drake and Mike Davis. Rashad Bateman looked good. Rashad Bateman should have had 2 touchdowns, but Lamar missed him on 1. So I'm not too worried about the passing offense, but I worry, like, the Jets' defense held them off for a while. This game was very low scoring, I think, going into halftime, if I remember correctly. So I think the Jets' performance speaks more about the Ravens than the Ravens' performance speaks about the Ravens, if that makes sense. They also lost Kyle Fuller for the season. He tore his ACL. So I'm concerned about the Ravens. I think that this is a team that I'm going to be watching closely. J.K. Dobbins is trending towards playing this week, but again, like, running backs coming off of ACL injuries aren't always 100%, and they're not even always 80%, so I'm very concerned about him. They definitely missed Gus Edwards. I think it'll be interesting to see how the Ravens play moving forward if they can't run the ball. Maybe they trade for, like, Alexander Madison, which would be sick. I think the Rams or the Ravens will probably try to trade for Madison or trade for a running back or pick one up off of waivers or something, because if J.K. Dobbins doesn't work and Gus Edwards doesn't work, they're going to be in trouble. Like, if they look bad, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I want to see how this team adapts moving forward. I was very pleased with their passing offense. Lamar threw 3 touchdowns, should have been 4. 2 to Duvernay, 1 to Bateman, should have been 2 to Bateman. And Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews, but they had Sauce on him, and Sauce looks really, really good. So we'll see. We'll see how the Ravens look moving forward. Going to keep a close eye on them in this offense. At rank 3, previously ranked 6, I got the Chiefs. Now, I wasn't in the boat of, like, the Chiefs are going to finish 3rd in the division, but I was in the boat of, like, they might take a little bit longer to click on offense, and my God, was I wrong. I will say this, and I've thought about this a lot, and I definitely believe it at this point. This Chiefs team is going to be better than any Chiefs team before it, I think. because now, like, Patrick Mahomes is just throwing to everybody. Threw 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards. He's throwing it to literally anybody with hands. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked good. Isaiah Pacheco looked good. Sky Moore had 1 catch. He looked good on what he did after the catch. Kelsey is Kelsey. I think that you could make the argument as well, this is the best coached team in football, being that with the current state of the Patriots and Bill Belichick. I think that you can make the case that Andy Reid currently is the best coach in football. I also one of the things that I really loved about the Chiefs offseason and why I thought, like, okay, this is going to be a big, like, this is why I thought it was going to take a little bit, but I thought it would be a huge, like, difference in the Chiefs is their two first-round picks were defensive. They got George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie, I believe. They're saying, like, Patrick, you don't have to do everything anymore. You don't, like, we're going to give you a defense that could actually get you on the field and that will help you if you get off the field. And he's still just, like, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is taking this season personal, and I'm starting to like him for league MVP. Because he made some of the most impressive... Him and Justin Herbert, I think, made 2 of the most impressive throws of the year. Like, I think they will continue to be... I know it's week 1, but they will be some of the best... Like, they will be looked at as top plays of the year. I forget... I think Mahomes' was to Kelsey, I'm pretty confident, and I forget who Herbert's was, but the Chiefs are legit. They're definitely a top team in football, and I'm starting to like Mahomes for MVP. At rank 2, previously ranked 2, I have the Chargers. Why I have the Chargers still very, very high is because I've said it before, and I've thought it all offseason, before preseason, and especially after the draft. They have the most complete roster in football. I don't think it's particularly close. Like, their deficiencies... Like, people are saying the Bills have the best team in football. I don't think the Chargers are far away, and I think they're ahead of them. The addition of J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, Zion Johnson was a huge pickup in the draft. I think this team still needs to add something as a running element to complement Austin Eckler, but Justin Herbert's just on a different, like, he's on a different level. And I think that Brandon Staley can now play defense the way he wants to play, if that makes sense. Like, he had to adjust a lot for how they couldn't stop the run last year. And now I think with their ability to get to the quarterback with Khalil Mack and Nick Bosa, along with, is it Nick or Joey? I always get them confused. I think it's Joey Bosa. Nick's on the 49ers. Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. And then they went out and added J.C. Jackson. Like, I don't think there is a weakness on this team besides running back. Like, I think that's their biggest weakness. And Austin Eckler's sick, but, like, I mean, like, as someone who could just smash the ball in from the goal line, they don't have that. They're hoping to have it in Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller, but I want to see it first before I anoint one of them as that role. I am worried about coaching, and I think this game tonight, because this is going to be released on Thursday, this game tonight is going to be a big teller of how the Chiefs are going to play throughout the season, because last year there was a huge knock on Staley's willingness to go for it on 4th down, and I think he's going to have to do that a lot tonight if he's going to do it. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out, but I think the Chargers at 2 is fair. Definitely could see them flopping with the Chiefs. I think they might beat the Chiefs tonight. I think it's going to be a very close game, but we'll see what happens. And then at rank 1, previously ranked 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. I am so sorry to Bills Nation that I put you at 3rd. Talk about being on another level. Josh Allen, like, isn't real. I think that's what I put on my takeaway for the Bills team. Is just Josh Allen's not real. His ability to just throw the ball as far as he needs to, from however he needs to throw it, is insane. The physicality he runs with is unparalleled. And this team, I think the biggest concern for me with the Bills is just, like, again, like, their running game, which looked good. Devin Singletary looked good. Josh Allen threw at Jalen Ramsey, I think, intentionally to make a statement. He looked good doing that. Gabe Davis looks good. I think the D-line looks really good. Their edge rushers look really good. Corner looked good, but I'm still not sold on that because if Matthew Stafford's elbow really was a factor in that game, I think that's the reason why they just kept dunking it underneath because they didn't do that last year. I think his elbow is a huge deal. So I'm not ready to say that their secondary is fixed, especially without Trey White. But Singletary looked good. I thought Zach Moss looked pretty good. Minus the fumble. But yeah, this team is legit, man. They are worth every bit of hype that they got. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week. That's going to do it for this week's power rankings. I was really excited about this video. I think it's going to get a lot of feedback, positive or negative. But I look for that. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you disagree with me. If I said something incorrect, particularly if you're a Raiders fan, because I struggled with that. Please tell me something that I did, something I did right, something I did wrong. Anything of that nature, because that's what I look for. That's what's going to make this channel better. That's what's going to make it better for you, because I care more about being accurate than telling people what they want to hear. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one, and I look forward to week 3. Peace!